Meeple Nation Podcast, episode 408, Shadows of Brimstone.
Welcome, citizens of Meeple Nation. For the next 30 minutes, sit back and enjoy.
Meeple Nation is sponsored by GameToppersLLC.com. Upgrade your game table, upgrade your game space, and upgrade your game night with a Game Topper from GameToppersLLC.com. They have game toppers for all different sizes of tables for ottomans. Check them out. They have beautiful mats that go along with your table and awesome accessories. GameToppersLLC.com. You will not be disappointed.
I agree. I love their stuff. Welcome to Meeple Nation. We are your hosts. I'm Nathan Howard.
I'm Dave Holliday.
And I am Andy Holliday.
Seems like Logan's down for the bout since this is the third fighting game we've talked about, and it's TKO for Logan. He's out of here. Hopefully he'll be back by episode 410. Seems like we're only going to have him on the news. His work schedule has conflicted with our recording schedule. We have missed him. So he will hopefully be back for episode 410 and beyond.
Let's hope. Because yes, it's nice to have Logan's insight for sure.
So if you're missing Logan, you can join him and his blogs, and all of our blogs at MeepleNation.com. Go there. We have our Instagram pictures that you can see all of our made-for-radio faces. You can read blogs that we've all written, including those who are not on air with us, who are more on the writing side of Meeple Nation. We have bios that you can read, past episodes that you can go to, and you can go all the way back to episode 1 or 100 or 200, or all that information is available and can be found at MeepleNation.com. If you have any feedback or any questions, please reach out to us at MeepleNation@gmail.com.
This week, we are concluding our discussion on fighting games with Shadows of Brimstone. In Shadows of Brimstone, City of the Ancients, you experience a fast-paced, fully cooperative dungeon crawl board game set, get this, in the Old West, with a heavy dose of unspeakable horror. Players create characters taking on the role of a classic Western hero archetype, such as the lawman, the gunslinger, or saloon girl. Forming an adventuring posse, the heroes venture down into the dark mines, overrun with all manner of ancient demons and foul creatures from another world. With tactical gameplay, lots of dice, and a robust card-driven exploration system, no two games are ever the same as the heroes explore the mines, finding new enemies to fight, new loot to collect, and dangers to overcome. Players can even find portals to other worlds, stepping through to continue their adventures on the other side. So load up your 6-shooter, throw on your hat and poncho, and gather the posse as the darkness is coming, and all heck's about to break loose in the Shadows of Brimstone. Shadows of Brimstone is a game I've only played the one time.
Is that true? You've only played it once.
Yeah, because I was not there when you guys played a ton without me in Dallas.
I thought that you had played it prior to our previous play this year.
Nope, that was my first time. And
Interesting.
And it was awesome. Game I really enjoyed, and I really look forward to playing more.
You know, the awesome thing about Shadows of Brimstone, because I'd played it years ago. I've had the game since it was released. I mean, it's pushing a decade since it was released. What was it, 2014, 2013?
2014.
2014. Yes. So it's been around for a while. I played it a fair bit when it first came out. I first picked it up, and I haven't. It's just kind of been sitting on the shelf for years.
I'd never have games that just sit on the shelf for years.
Of course not, right?
That's right. What's your problem, Andy Poops?
This is one I knew would be right up Logan's alley, just because of the horror theme. To have that horror theme along with a Western.
Love it.
And they've done it so well. And I'm just a sucker for dungeon crawlers anyway. That's actually why I picked it up. At that point in time, I was picking up as many dungeon crawlers as I could because I just love dungeon crawlers.
Pause for just a minute. So what's separating that time from at this time?
7 years.
But nothing's changed with collecting dungeon crawlers, right?
I don't know. It's a little different. I'm still buying a fair number of games, but it's not, okay, where's another dungeon crawler? Where's another dungeon crawler? Now, if a cool dungeon crawler comes out, then I'm definitely interested, but I'm not necessarily actively looking for dungeon crawlers to play.
Currently, it's pirate games.
That's true. That's almost always too.
No, I just can't wait for the next crossover theme that's dungeon crawlers, pirate-based dungeon crawlers.
That would be amazing.
With aliens.
Okay.
No, I'm with you though. I love the idea of the Western themed dungeon crawler. I just think that's great. Throwing in the horror part as well. It's just awesome.
The heroes in this are the epic Western heroes, but they've added in one of the expansions, it's one of the standalone expansions, I believe it's the Swamps of Death, where you have the preacher. The preacher, or you can flip the card and it's the nun. They have abilities that affect demons. Even though it's the preacher and there's that Western theme, it still attaches itself to the horror monsters that happen to be demons, and they get bonuses. And I absolutely love what they've done with the characters in this. My favorite character to play has been the gunslinger. The gunslinger has a very unique ability. You have a 6-shooter tile that you put unique ammunition in that 6-shooter. When you shoot the 6-shooter, you can use specific ammo that will do different things. You get that ammo as you level up your character. That's one of the things you can unlock, the different types of ammunition that you can use and throw into your 6-shooter. I just love the customizability of the game. It holds up to other dungeon crawlers where you get to level up your heroes and play in campaigns, and some of those missions can get pretty dang tough really quick. We played one at BGG-Con that we totally got destroyed in.
Yeah, we lost terribly.
You talk about the leveling up. To me, when I think of things that happen in games that I like, character development is right there at the very top. That's always something that I'm looking for in these types of games, is that they do the good job with that. This game is very different. Say, for example, Descent, or some of the games that we play a lot of. It's very different than those as far as it levels up. It's much quicker, especially if you're playing the nun or the preacher, right? You can level up super quickly.
Which is your experience, the one game. And
right.
That is definitely true as the preacher. The preacher is the character that levels up the fastest. You get tons of experience as the preacher.
And that's one you're playing, right?
That's when I played when we were at BGG-Con. Was the preacher.
You talked up this game, and Logan had really talked up this game. Pitched it as being a Western Cthulhu. I was kind of hesitant about it. I thoroughly loved this game. I very much enjoyed the whole leveling up your character. However, it was kind of frustrating to watch you level up so quickly and myself coming up way behind. I mean, even Logan was leveling up faster than I was. But still, those starting hero upgrades that we got at the first that you got to pick, use those abilities for the rest of the game. Halfway through, I picked poorly, playing the Bandito. And the Bandito, one of his starting abilities would allow me to, whenever I gain a loot card, I can discard it to draw something else. As we've played and as we've gone on, that card has actually been very beneficial. I've been able to pick up some great artifacts. I've been able to pick up some great gear. Got a ton of money. Because I can get rid of those cheap cards and say, okay, I don't want that. I want to roll the D6 and I get 50 gold for every pip instead of getting just 50 gold.
It would be interesting as we play this more. You mentioned that it's frustrating seeing the preacher level up so quickly, yet the Bandito has that strength, and which means you essentially get to level up because you're leveling up your gear faster than I am.
Absolutely.
So it'll be interesting to see as we get further and further into the campaign if that balances out. I would imagine it does. The preacher doesn't do a lot of damage so much. I mean, I took the starting upgrade that allowed me to use a shotgun. Otherwise, the preacher can't even use guns. I wanted to at least be able to do a little bit of damage, but I think that's why they have the preacher and the nun level up so quickly, because they really aren't necessarily an offensive character. They do healing, they do have some sermons that do damage, but it's harder to hit with those. You have to roll 2 dice, once you have to roll 9 or better. It's harder to do. And then there's the risk, have the dangerous sermons that you have a risk of detrimental things happening. If roll doubles, essentially, that will trigger the dangerous spell effect.
This is a cool mechanic as well, but I haven't experienced it yet. I've only played the one time. But the dangerous side effect of certain sermons or certain spells, whatever you want to call them, you can end up having mutation or whatever, right?
Yep.
And I'm looking forward to it happening. I was taking and using the more dangerous ones in hopes that I could have some of those things happen, just because I think it'll be cool and kind of fun in my character's journey and my character's development. Unfortunately, I haven't actually triggered much of that yet.
One of the things that you can do, which is another thing I like about this, after each adventure you go back to town. There's events that happen at each location in town, but you get to purchase things and spend your money. One of the things you can buy is something that will mitigate, and you kind of get to choose, or at least have a choice on mutations that you get, because not all mutations are good mutations. Some of them are really bad mutations, whereas some of them can be like crazy beneficial.
So you got a mutation when we were in BGG, right?
No,
Or was it Logan that got one? It was Logan that got it.
It was Logan that got a mutation.
Turned his one hand into a tentacle.
Correct.
It gave him a benefit, but it made it so he could no longer use his shotgun, which he was upset because he was very effective with his shotgun, which was allowing him to gain.
It's how you gain XP typically in the game is by killing monsters, and the bigger monsters, you actually get experience per damage that you do to it. But most monsters, if you kill it, you get the experience bonus or the experience value for a particular monster. There's certain times that throughout the game that you have a chance to gain corruption. Once you gain 4 corruption, you have to make a roll, a will save. If you fail, you gain a mutation. And then you roll on the mutation chart and to see what mutation you end up with. And like you said, Logan ended up getting his arm became a tentacle. In our game, Dave, I came back to town with like 12 Darkstone, and
I remember that,
I ended up gaining a mutation, and I grew a tentacle for a tail or something like that, which allows me to use an extra hand.
Nice.
So it actually was a beneficial one. I can't remember if it had a negative effect too. It may have. The mutations are there's a bunch of different ones. Some of them are just all bad. Some of them are a mixed bag, like what Logan got, and some of them can just be good. But there are items that can mitigate the risk of getting a bad one.
So I think part of my frustration, well, not part of my frustration, because I didn't really have a frustration with this game, other than watching both you and Logan level up faster. Part of that frustration was linked to the fact that essentially I was kind of using the wrong weapon. Bandito had a pistol, and the pistol only has 2 shots, which means I only rolled 2 dice. So my chance of hitting on those 2 dice is rather small. Whereas Logan gave me his knife, and my Bandito could fight with the knife far more effectively and do more damage with the knife, because with the knife I was using my combat skill, which was 4, which meant I was rolling 4 dice instead of just 2, so my ability and my opportunity to hit was doubled. I was rolling twice as many dice. The first 2 games we played, I was just trying to use the pistol. It was, I'm not doing anything. You guys are gaining all this XP and I'm way back here. Once I changed over to that knife, I found I was far more effective. Then I started combining that knife with my starting ability. So I got those Darkstone gloves, which added 1 to my combat. So now I'm rolling 5 dice instead of 4 dice. Gave me a much more appreciation for the game, or I guess much more enjoyment from the game.
Yeah, once you switched over to that melee weapon, you really did start wreaking havoc. And I had the shotgun with my priest, but I only had 1 shot. Whenever you attack, you roll a d6. Normally, with any other weapon other than the shotgun, you get to roll a d8. And your chance of hitting is a lot higher, and your chance of critically with a shotgun is a lot higher, but it's a 1-shot. If you miss, you miss. Whereas having all those dice with your knife, which you got to roll 5, yeah, you roll poorly on 1 or 2 dice, so what? You still hit with 3, and you still get to do damage and potentially gain that experience.
So with the shotgun, you were rolling the D8, right?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, all I was rolling was D6s. Gave me that opportunity to be more effective. Felt like I was doing something more than just watching you guys do all the work. Because for a little bit, it felt like I was just observing. But after that, I was fully involved. The exploration in the game, the discovery, the story aspect of it as you're discovering and you're investigating the corridors that you're in and finding those monsters, those demons, I guess they were demons, having them come after you. Even those games that we won, it felt like we're super overwhelmed.
There were sometimes the room was completely fill up with enemies to fight. Another thing that I've thought they've done well with Shadows of Brimstone, each character has 6 attributes: agility, cunning, spirit, strength, lore, and luck. And I think they've done a pretty good job integrating those and actually making those meaningful in the game. Whenever you discover a new room, there's an encounter token that gets placed into the room itself. At the end of the round, it gets flipped, and you see what happens. So sometimes there's an attack, and that means monsters come in. When there's attack, monsters come in inside that room as far away from the heroes as possible. If there's an ambush, they actually surround the heroes with monsters, or there's an encounter. And typically when there's an encounter, you're going to be rolling on one of your attributes. It'll either be all players or a random player, or choose one player. And that player is going to do a test with one of their attributes. Some of the monsters will have effects that will force you to roll an attribute test. Love how they've implemented the attributes. So it's not just combat. There's also other things that are important with your character as you're trying to pick a character. Attributes can be drastically important. And even one of the missions we did, to actually complete the mission, was an attribute-based roll that you had to make. I like how they've done that.
Yeah, I felt they did a really good job of incorporating that and making it so it wasn't just a walkthrough. all too often talk about these cooperative games, and they're just so easy to overrun as the heroes. But sometimes it feels like that it's meant for the heroes to win, and there's really no chance for the heroes to lose. This game has that challenge, and it has that intensity and that anxiety that goes, oh man, we're going to lose. Because we lost already.
We did, yeah. And one other thing I like is it's not like you're replaying that mission.
Yeah.
You lose, that mission's over.
Kind of surprised, too, that we're like, well, we're going to lose this one. Do we start over? And you're like, no, we can't start over because the next mission's completely different. We don't get to play this again. Where we refer back to Gloomhaven and in our experiences with Gloomhaven, where in the 60 plays that I've played of Gloomhaven, we've only ever lost one game. And so if we lose, we just play it over again.
Right.
It doesn't affect anything if we lose. Whereas in Shadows of Brimstone, when you lose, you lost. There were some slight repercussions, and we crawl out of the cave and escape and limp back to town and try to resolve the corruption that we received, if we received any, try to improve, and then go back to the caves and try something else. We're on a different quest. We're on a different story. And there's a lot of content with this.
That's what's crazy is just the amount of content and how they implement that content seamlessly. Number of enemy expansions in this game is unreal. Nathan, you were looking before we recorded it, all the expansions, and you were just amazed at the number of expansions there are for this.
Yeah, so there's got to be at least 140 expansion items, right? Some of those are individual promo things, yes, but a lot of those are enemy packs, mission packs, large expansion. It is an expansion, but it's kind of a base game entrance almost.
Yeah, so they have 3 standalone base game, and then they have 2 standalone expansions that basically count as base games. They introduced the Far East version, so you can have samurai and different characters that are based in that part of the world, that culture. And then they have hero expansion packs, so you can play all sorts of different heroes. There's drifters, there's tons of stuff, different heroes that you can play. The number of enemies that you can add, they come out randomly. You just add them to the decks, which I love. You're fighting in the mines, and whatever enemy packs you have, there's a potential that they're going to come out, and you're going to have to fight them. I love that aspect of it, how seamless everything fits in. So you go back to town, they have a town pack. Improves your experience in between games. With this town expansion, you get a better town experience. You may actually end up fighting a gang, have a battle in town. Separate board that you'll use for that. There's just a ton of stuff. One of the things that's really fun that you can do, so you mentioned that you can go through portals and visit other worlds. Well, some of the expansions introduce another world, or usually 2 worlds. The dungeon tiles that you're placing are double-sided. One side will be one world, and one side will be the other world. If you go through a portal, then you will draw from that world deck, and it will tell you which tile to place in that new universe that you're in, or that new world that you're in. For example, the Caverns of Cinder is one of the worlds that you can introduce to your game. It's a world that your heroes can go visit if they choose to go through a portal. One thing we didn't mention is all heroes have grit. You don't really realize how important it is when you first start, but as you play, you realize, oh my goodness, grit is like crazy important. What grit does is it allows you to re-roll any number of dice that you've rolled. Whether it's an attack, anytime you roll dice, with the exception of holding back the darkness, which we'll explain that in a bit, that's the only time you can't use grit. However, once you've re-rolled dice, you can't use grit to re-roll any of your re-rolls. Grit is also used to power certain hero abilities. Typically, if you have to spend a grit, it's going to be one of the more powerful abilities that your hero is going to have. But there are ways to increase your max grit, and that's by leveling up your hero. There's a skill tree that you follow. Once you level up, you get to choose one of 4 different paths, and you have to start on the first row, pick one of those abilities, and that's what you gain, and that unlocks the skill underneath the skill that you chose. Later on, you can still choose one of the other skills in the top row of the skill tree, or you can choose anything from the second row that you have a skill that you've already unlocked the skill above it. It's not the most complex skill trees. It's fairly simple and straightforward. I think they do a good job. There's enough depth that I think you get the full experience of leveling up that hero. And there's enough skills to unlock that I don't think you'll ever unlock all of them.
Going back to the grit was something that at first I was kind of leery of. That was something that I used a lot. When my character leveled up finally, I was able to get Sinister Laugh, which would, when I kill an enemy, there's a chance I can get grit back, and then it also increased my maximum grit level. I could have 3 of those tokens. When you're rolling 4, 5 dice even, that was huge, because if I miss, I can keep what I hit with, and then I can roll. Using that grit, like you brought up earlier, Andy, last year when we were playing this, being able to roll those 5 dice and then re-roll with the grit. And then when I killed something, getting grit back, felt like I was always in constant supply of grit. That changed how my character played. It changed how everything was going as we played this towards that last time.
You know, I like the fact that thematically how awesome that is. You go up a level and you gain Sinister Laugh. You can just picture that. The Bandito kills something and you get that Sinister Laugh.
Absolutely.
You roll a 5 or 6. I rolled a 6, my Sinister Laugh, I get a grit back. I just love the role-playing aspect of that and how the thematics of it is just awesome. All of the skills that you gain as you level up will have that. There's some flavor to the names of those skills. It kind of builds your character and builds the world and what your character's doing and how your character behaves depending on what skills that you take. The names of those skills. I love that. I think that's a great addition to the game and a great touch to it.
I don't want to say it made the game for me, but it was a highlight for sure. There was so much that I really did enjoy about this game that I was hesitant, that I didn't think I was going to, but I really, really did enjoy this game. Using that grit and having that ability, thematically it worked, right? I mean, even the terminology of using the grit, it shined for me. This was a game that I didn't think I was going to like, and I ended up really, really liking it.
I don't know, that kind of surprises me. You seem to like the Western theme a little bit, but maybe it was the Western horror fusion that was kind of making you think twice about it.
Maybe that's what it was. There was just something that I was a little bit concerned that I didn't think was going to work for me, and it did.
The mechanics are a little bit, you kind of have to wrap your head around it, because it's different. It's different than any game I've ever played as far as how your rolls work. For example, if I'm using a pistol, like you mentioned, Nathan, and I have that pistol says it has 2 shots on it, that means in combat I get to roll 2 dice.
Right.
But I need to look at my range skill, and that's going to give me my target number as far as what I have to roll on those dice to hit. For example, if I'm the lawman, my range skill is 4. So if I roll a 4, 5, or 6, that's considered a hit. If I'm the preacher or the nun, then that is a 5. So I'm only hitting on 5s and 6s. It's a lot harder to hit, and they're just not near as offensive. Whereas if I'm the gunslinger, it's a 3. So I just love the certain strengths and weaknesses of each of the characters, and where they have a weakness, they have other skills that compensate for that. I think one thing we didn't talk about is actual gameplay. What happens on a turn? The first thing you do is you roll your movement die. Well, actually, the first thing you do in the round is whoever's holding the lantern has to make a hold back the darkness roll. You look at the depth track, so it has 2 rings on it, 1 on each end when you start the game. One is the depth that your heroes are on, and you start out on the first space. Whenever you discover a new tile, that ring moves down 1. There's also another ring on the other end, which is the darkness. And the darkness is trying to get out of the mine, almost the opposite effect. At the beginning of the round, whoever's holding the lantern does a hold back the darkness roll. The player with the lantern has to make that roll, and depending on where we are on our depth track in the mine, that roll gets harder and harder the deeper we go. It starts out at a 7, and then it gets to an 8, and then it gets to a 9. The longer it takes us to complete that mission, which a lot of those missions you can complete fairly quickly, or it can take a long time depending on encounter tiles that are randomly put on the explored rooms when you explore them. That roll gets made, and then you go in initiative order, and high initiative goes first. If there's a tie, the monsters go before the heroes do. On a hero's turn, you get to roll your movement die. You roll a d6, and that tells you how many spaces you can move. If you roll a 1, you recover a grit. Get to move 1 space still, but that's one of the only ways that you get to recover grit unless you have a special ability that tells you otherwise. So you roll your movement die, do your movement, however many spaces you want to move based on your die roll, and then you get to perform an action. That action can be shooting or attacking something. It can be searching the room you're in. It can be looking through the door. There's several doors in each of the caverns that you're in and on the map tiles. And when you look through the door, if you're in the mine, you're going to draw off the top of the mine card deck. And it's going to tell you the next map tile that comes out, which I love. The map changes every time. You could play the same mission every single time and never have the same map. There's a ton of map tiles.
I like that. Because it wasn't had a stack of tiles, it was the cards. You shuffle those cards together, and then you go find the tile piece. The more we talk about this, the more I want to just stop and let's go play it.
I'm with you. And I know, Dave, when we were laying out the mine when we played, it gets to where it overlaps on itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I can't remember if it was you that asked or someone asked.
It wasn't me. I don't remember who was playing with us, but yeah, I remember that too.
They asked, do we redraw or where the door is? I'm like, no, we just kind of throw it over the top. It shows the depth of the mine. You're either above or below where you started, like a normal cavern would be. Just the visualization of that, I really liked.
Yeah, same.
ran into that same thing when we were playing at BGG. The tile started to overlap, confused of what are we going to do? Take out that old tile piece? Do we take out stuff? But no, where you just lay it over and nope, you got to think 3D, right? This is a tunnel going over since we're putting it over that tile. That makes sense. That's great. Yeah. I love it.
The very first mission you play, at least in the Swamps of Death and City of Ancients, first adventure in both of those is the same one, called A Fistful of Darkstone. For that mission, you just have to get clue icons on the exploration tokens. So the clue icons are a little exclamation point. The number that you have to get depends on how long of a mission. It lets you choose. Do you want a short mission? You only need one. Do you want a normal mission? You have to do 2. If you want a longer mission, you have to do 3.
I thought we had to do 3 all the time. I didn't realize there was a choice here.
Maybe it was 2, 3, and 4. I can't remember. So scratch that. It's a normal mission was 3, a short mission was 2, and a long mission was 4.
Okay, so we just did normal mission.
We just did a normal mission. First go, we barely made it. We were hurting pretty badly by the end. I don't know if we could have successfully done a long mission. We proved that the next time we played is the very next mission was the one we lost. I like how you're looking for something different each time. The next mission was something completely different. We weren't necessarily looking for those clue icons on the exploration tokens. The third mission was once again different than first 2, and we were looking for a specific tile, but it wasn't necessarily the icons on them. What you're trying to do and the objective of each mission changes. It's not monotonous. That was my concern on that first time doing the mission. That was, okay, are we just going to be doing, got to get clue icons every single time? Is it just going to be the same thing? But no, it's not. I thought they did a great job changing it up to not make it feel the same. We have yet to travel into a different world. I think we're up level now because it recommends not doing that at the beginning.
You're up a high enough level for sure. Me, I don't know.
But with the amount of money, I think with your upgrades, we should be able to hopefully travel into another world. Played this at BGG Con. They only had what the base games had. Here at home, we have a lot more content than what was at BGG Con. Something we definitely need to play here, really get a taste of what those different worlds are like. I'm really excited to try that.
I'm looking forward to it because it sounds like the game that you, Logan, and Dave played was different than the game that you, Logan, and I played. I'm excited for the different content. Hopefully yours is better organized than that box at BGG, which was just, everything was in bags at least, but all those bags were just dumped in the box.
It was a bit of a mess, and that is one difficult thing about this game is there is just so much. 1 million tokens, there are...
Easily overwhelm you, for sure.
Being organized with a game like this, where there is just so much content, you really just need to have something that organizes everything so that it's easy to find, so you're not having all this downtime trying to find a specific token or monsters or something like that. All the monsters are miniatures and the heroes. If I was going to have one complaint about this game, I only have one. And that is you have to assemble the miniatures. I don't like that aspect of it.
That's something that was kind of a downside to me. Star Wars Legion. At the same point, many people who enjoy painting or working on their miniatures, that allows them to better access to better detail those. So I get why some of them do that, but I'm not one of those people that enjoy that. So I look at something like Marvel Crisis Protocol, which is exactly that. It's a miniatures game, but those miniatures come unassembled. And so you have to assemble your Avengers, whatever character. Sorry.
I like what you did there.
You like that? Thank you. It allows you to craft paint and personalize that character or that figure to you. But I'm not that person. I would much rather get my copy of Descent and all the miniatures are there. Sure, if you want to paint them, that's great. And I think people that paint them, that's amazing, right? That takes some mad skill that I don't have. Well, or I don't have patience for anyway.
I like painting miniatures. That being said, I have 1 million miniatures that I need to paint, and I really don't want to have to take the time to put them together as well. I'd much rather have them there so I can paint them instead of, okay, before I can even play the game, I have to put these stupid things together. And I'd much rather pick up a game and be able to read the rules and bring it to the table, not have to spend hours and hours putting miniatures together. That was my one complaint. And like you said, I know there's people that really like it. I am not one of them. That, and I didn't use the right glue at the beginning, so half of them fell apart and I had to put it back together again. Double the pain.
And my issue was, I guess maybe I'm trying to do it too fast. I glue my fingers to the miniature or myself.
Yeah.
And just over here, can't pull my fingers apart.
I did this with my copy, Didn't really like the money so much when you gain money. It came with some poker tokens. I liked the poker tokens. It just didn't seem to be enough of them. I think they probably included them for the gambling that you can do in town, but it made more sense to use them as money, but there just weren't enough. So I actually just went and bought poker chips, used those as money. It just works better for the theme of the game, and it's just kind of fun to have poker chips in front of you in a Western-themed game. It just felt right.
And if you're doing nothing else, you can at least play with the poker chips.
That's true. Like I said, that's my only complaint about the game. I love the fact that there's tons of content. I feel like I have a ton of content for this, a lot of expansions, but I don't even know if I have half of it. I have all the big stuff. I still have a ton of enemy packs that I don't have yet.
Well, doggone it, let's play some more.
I like that idea, Dave. We need Nathan to show up to Shadows of Brimstone night, or just do Shadows of Brimstone night on Nathan's game nights.
Maybe both.
Maybe both.
With all the content that's out there, there is so much that we could talk about Shadows of Brimstone, but we've reached our time limit. Gotta close up the cave and go exploring again later. I've already mentioned that I felt Shadows of Brimstone was a stellar game. Talked about all the content that's coming out. There was 28 items of Shadows of Brimstone that came out in 2021. And in 2022, I have 2 things announced. Already going to 2023 and next year, they have 3 big expansions that they already have planned out. And so I'm sure with both this year and next year, you'll get more enemy packs, more mission packs that will come out to expand that even further. Could get to a point where it can overwhelm somebody. I almost put this on the shelf next to Gloomhaven, where there's just so much content, so much in Gloomhaven that's in the box. There's so much Shadows of Brimstone in all the boxes. If you're looking for something with a lot of content and a lot of replayability, this is it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sounds like we really have our work cut out for us then. So let's get on it. 2 thumbs up for me.
You know, my complaint was the miniatures. That being said, mine were all the earlier copies. Come out with 2 new releases, graded releases for Swamps of Death and City of Ancients. They've improved the miniatures, so there's less assembly. I think they did that for people like me that didn't necessarily enjoy that aspect of it. Made it a little easier to get to the table a little more quickly. If that's something that concerns you, I wouldn't let that concern you too much. Sounds like they've done some work to try to mitigate the assembly of your minis. Going back to what you said, Nathan, as far as the amount of content, you can have fun with the base game. Adding the extra content, it makes it more fun.
Absolutely. Very easy to compare content in this with content with Gloomhaven.
You don't have to have everything, like we don't even have half of the content that's out there. Yet we've thoroughly enjoyed it. If you look at what we played at BGG-Con, we were just playing this in the base game box. We did have the 2 base games. All the content besides the heroes that we were playing was just from one box. And we still had a really fun time playing. It is something I would highly recommend picking up. If dungeon crawlers are your thing, you won't be disappointed in this. If you like the theme of Western horror theme, 100% pick this up. It's great. Couldn't say anything more positive about it. Something that I highly recommend.
Until next time.
Came out Sean Connery again.
Not one bit, actually. There was no Scottish in that at all. You'll hear when you listen to it with Abbott.
We'll see you deep in the caverns and the shadows of Brimstone. Watch out for those demons.
As always, we want to thank you for listening.
Check out our website. We have all sorts of cool things there. Love those blogs. Get a deeper look into the writing side of Meeple Nation.
Join our Facebook group, Meeple Nation Off Air. I look forward to seeing you there.
Follow us on Twitter, @Meeple Nation. We also have Instagram.
Under the same name. We also want to thank our sponsor, GameToppersLLC.com.
We love their product, and they have so much goodness out there.
And we also want to thank Brain Detergent for our music.
All right, I always say all right. You guys say so, I say all right. So,
Now, don't start that again.
we are, what do I usually say now?
All right.
All right.
All right.
Does it say all heck's about to break loose?
It includes 2 L's.
Okay.
It includes 2 L's.
Thanks for keeping us G-rated.
You got it. So, Shadows...
Good.
No, I just said so.
Oh. Logan's not even here to make fun of you.
You're talking about the leveling up. So that's
He's
one of
Andy,
my...
by the way.
What did I say?
Nate, you're talking about the leveling up.
I don't
Well,
think
he
I
said,
said-
"Nyeh, nyeh."
I don't think I said... maybe I was going French and I was saying "niet."
That's
I don't know.
Russian, actually, but okay.
But
Grit is also used to foul.